are getting ready to go live with Steve. You know, Steve or Steven?
Steve, please.
Steve Nelson joining us on episode 63. We're going to hit play in just a second as soon as I find... Hey, look at that. I'm wearing the same shirt tonight that I wore last time.
Uh-oh.
That's good.
Caught you on mid-laundry cycle? Or
no.
The cusp of a new cycle?
No, we're always doing laundry at my house.
Yeah.
It's perpetual. It's kind of like Big Ben. Hey, Steve Nelson's watching us.
I'm just trying to figure out how to share the feed.
I'm
sure everybody wants to see me messing with my phone.
Fine. You want to do it real quick?
Here we are. Hit share.
We got time. This is informal. No
Yeah.
worries.
Hey, everyone. How are you? We'll practice our parade wave. We got somebody else watching too. Oh, there I am. See, I can see myself.
Can watch yourself.
Yeah.
Well, let's just get going on this.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Sounds good. Here we go, kids. 3, 2. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Kinetic Chaos Podcast number 63. I am your host, Will, joined as always by my good friend Wes.
Right here I am.
He is directly across from me today. We are joining you not from the secret underground bunker, but from Wes's parents' house, David from Tech 2, and we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Steve Nelson, who is sitting to my left. How are we, Steve?
Doing all right. How you guys doing?
Oh, well, I'd be lying if I said wonderful, but I'm living, so we're all here because of that. It's not because of you, it's because of the cold that's traveling around my house. So.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, exactly. So when I sneeze on you, don't take it as it's just...
Was this your microphone before?
Yeah, I licked it. It's kind of like my lollipop. So no. Anyway, so we've got Steve joining us this evening. Got everyone out there in Facebook land. Wes is across from me, like I said. We are here where we had Brianne Johnson from DeWills just a few weeks ago. This is kind of our nice setup when we have guests that we don't want to scare away. We bring them here. So Steve, you want to give some background on you just a little bit before we get started with our show?
Well, I work in a civil engineering firm. I've done that for about 20 years. Been working on the side in politics, helping out campaigns for, I guess about 8 years now.
Wow. We're going to get into that here in a little bit about the campaign stuff. So all the questions that are swimming around inside my head, I'll save those for a little while. But married, kids, all that good stuff?
Yep. Married to my high school sweetheart.
Nice.
Met in high school. And then we have 2 boys, Ryan and Connor, 16 and 13. And man, heck of a ride. It's awesome. Enjoying it.
Right? That's life. And as you've watched the show before, you know that we do something good at the start of every show. So we'll start with Wes like we usually do, but hopefully we'll get you to pitch in on this.
Something good that happened to me would be did Thanksgiving at the in-laws yesterday.
Oh, very nice.
Because we're hosting it this year at our house, and my parents are going to join us for that one. But we did the in-laws Thanksgiving, that being Tia's parents, of course, yesterday, and a whole ton of food as per usual with Thanksgiving, and so I'm still pretty full from that. And
you're still full right now?
And then we got sent home with a bunch of leftovers, which we have to figure out how to clear out before Thursday because we'll have new leftovers on Thursday. So
I know how to clear it out.
And the bad
I don't
part,
think that challenge is one that you're gonna share.
Well, the bad part is my mother-in-law is a huge baker, and she baked 8 pies.
8? For how many people?
Ocho. We got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, counting my 2 kids would be 9.
So there were 8 pies for 9 people.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And your 2
What's
kids.
bad about that?
Right. Okay. So give us the rundown on the pies. What are we dealing with here?
We had 4 pumpkin pies. That's
overkill.
1 to go home with us, 1 to go home with my brother-in-law, 1 for them to keep, and 1 to eat for dessert. So that was the 4. That was half of them. The other 4 were a cherry blueberry, which was outstanding.
Oh my goodness, I could get down with that.
And then pecan pie.
Yeah.
And then we had just straight rhubarb. She usually goes rhubarb blueberry combo, but this was straight rhubarb. And then the last one was that sugar pie, which I told you about, kind of like a creme brulee pie.
That
which
sounds
was incredible. Yeah.
Steve,
I want your problems, man.
Isn't that what the kids are saying? First world problems.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit of each of those at home right now that you're dealing with.
Yep, exactly. I'm dealing with it, trying to.
You're like, oh, I just can't. But I can't waste it. You don't.
Oh no.
And you just get it. You're training.
That's right.
You're training for Thursday, right?
For the big event, the day of event.
Okay, so over under on the number of pies that you'll have on the big day, I'm setting right now at 7.5.
Well, Tia's only going to make 2 pies, so we're going to tone it down for Thursday. There's not going to be the 8 pies again on Thursday.
Really?
So yeah.
No one else does. How many people are you going to have for the big shindig?
That
Because
will
you're doing it at
be
your house.
At
this
our
year,
house,
right?
so it'll be my parents and my aunt, and then so that's 5. We got 8 people, so we got one less person, but you know.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
How many pound turkey?
Oh boy, that'd be a question for Tia. She was in charge of the shopping. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, yeah. If I'm going to give you my 2 cents on turkeys, go 2 small ones rather than 1 big
Yeah.
one. Just for cook time.
Yeah.
So, well, something good that happened to me is I got to return to my childhood roots a little bit and succumb to both my boys, and I got a new RC car.
Awesome.
Yes, it is awesome because it goes like 60 miles an hour, and I don't know if it spends more time doing cartwheels down the road or what, but it is an absolute blast. Friday night, went over to Hobbytown because my oldest son Brandon was looking at this rock crawler. He's got a fast one already, and he wanted a rock crawler. So we go over there and get that, and he goes in and gets that, and I walk out with this. I almost got an 8 scale one.
Jeez.
They're like this big. They're like, if you're watching, you can see me, but they're like 3 feet long or something, and they go 60 miles an hour. I was like, oh, I really want that, but I can't justify, because that would like damage a car if I ran into it. The one that I got is a 10 scale. It's not going to do, although it throws a lot of rocks everywhere. I found out the hard way is they were hitting me in the face because they were doing construction on my road. So I'm like, and I had no idea how fast this thing goes. I got the 3-cell LiPo battery for it, and I just go, and it's 4-wheel drive, just showers me with rocks. And then we go and find a bunch of rock piles because they're doing this construction. I'm climbing it and jumping it. Brandon's got his rock crawler going over it, and I'm just go. Oh, it's great. I can't believe. And then it's got this self-righting feature. Careful. That you press a button on the remote and it rocks itself back and forth and gets back over on its wheels.
Oh, wow.
It is insane. It probably does. I could take it to 60. I think it's 65 if I put this gear that it came with.
You're kidding me.
No, but that is straight on road, just straight stretch. The one that I have in there right now, it probably does about 45, maybe 50. That is so incredibly fast for an RC car, though. And it goes for, 30 minutes. Not nonstop, but yeah, we were racing it all weekend long. Down on the rocks, in the grass, in the dirt. Oh, it was just, yeah. So I'm, check out my Instagram. I had pictures up there on that. And it was like going right back to when I was 13 years old. Except that this one is like legitimately fast. And I had a kid tell me on my road, can you run that down there, please? I'm like, hey, I'm on my road. I'm not in your yard. I'm not doing anything to you. So just don't be a hater just because my RC car is cool and you're not joking. But anyway, so that was what good happened to me since the last time I recorded it. It's been a lot of fun, and I will continue to have a lot of fun with that this week. So, Steve, what do you got for us?
What do I got? Well, today's my Friday.
It is,
yes.
right? The one-day work week.
Yeah, man, it's great. Just gonna take the next few days and eat and see family. And
Are you going anywhere? Staying home? What do you do?
No, everybody comes to us.
Do they?
Yeah.
So how many people are you in?
For dinner, I think like 12.
Whoa, it's a good crowd.
Right around that. Yeah, we've had more than that before. We deep fry a couple turkeys.
Yeah, I saw that. Now, is that do you brine them? What do? Do you brine them and then?
We'll brine them if they get thawed in time. Yeah.
Well, you can thaw them in the brine.
Right. Yeah, brine them and then
Ever
we have.
caught your house on fire deep frying?
No,
them?
because we use 2 electrical fryers.
Oh, good.
I think you can get them at Costco.
Yeah,
But you can do like a 15-pound bird in these. So we just drop 2 birds and it takes no time at all. And flavor's awesome.
Cool.
Do you inject it at all?
Yeah. I
Maybe
usually
butter
whip up a
or-
little something with some spices and some butter and.
All that good stuff.
Yes, sir.
Very nice. Well, it's as we get ready for Thanksgiving here, we always have lots of stuff to be thankful for. But
Well, I gotta say, your last show, the Thanksgiving show, killed me. I mean, I was so hungry by the time I was done watching that. It was crazy.
we had fun with that. It was
Glad we could be of service.
Yeah,
was
exactly.
hilarious.
We had a few people comment on that, saying that they had fun, and I think Jennifer McDaniel was wondering what we actually do like, because we were talking about all the things that we don't like. So we and in fact then I had to have that conversation about the pumpkin pie, and for some reason after the show on Thursday, I've been kind of craving a pumpkin pie since then. So I think Kim may actually make a gluten-free pumpkin pie for me, so that I can have that. So, although I'm thinking, and she doesn't know this yet, honey, if you're watching or listening, she makes these cheesecake bites. They're in the size of a muffin. You make them in a muffin tin, and she gets these gluten-free, what are they? Graham crackers. Makes the crust out of those, and then makes cheesecake. And when you pour the batter in there, you have some like raspberry jam or strawberry jam. You just take a toothpick and swirl it. Oh my goodness!
Here we go.
Quite possibly one of the best things I've ever eaten in terms of desserts by far. So, anyway, well, let's get started on the actual show here. We can talk Thanksgiving in a little while if we want. We can continue getting hungry for all that, but we've got a good news story here that we've got a girls volleyball team that lost everything in the wildfire. But they've got all new gear from their opponent.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool deal. This is in Paradise, California, which is the site of the huge, devastating fire. It was the girls' volleyball team from the high school in Paradise. They had made it all the way to the semifinals before this fire struck. And in the course of the fire, they lost everything, all their gear, everything. They had nothing left. So they showed up to play their semifinal tournament. And I'm guessing they were just wearing regular street clothes because they didn't have uniforms. And unbeknownst to them, their opponent in the semifinal had heard about how they had lost everything, and they started a crowdsource funding and raised $16,000 and went out and bought the entire team uniforms. And so when they showed up to play this game, they were totally surprised, presented with all new uniforms. Each player got a $300 gift card. And they had just truckloads of supplies for all the families, all food and clothing and whatever else. And then after the game was over, they put on a huge banquet spread for the other team too. So talk about some serious sportsmanship. That was a really cool thing.
That's when you see that life becomes real in that you see the goodness. You know, we talk about this all the time. The goodness shows when people really need it. You know, whether it's politics, whatever it is, there's so much nastiness out there. But we love to see this kind of stuff, and to see them go above and beyond that. I mean, $16,000. That's a pretty big dollar amount to raise so quickly. You know, I mean, this is something that we want to continue to see. We hate that it has to be under these circumstances.
Right.
So we'd like to see that kind of stuff occur without having to have some major devastation tied to it. So. Well, we're going to get into the hot sheet here. First one, this is a major deal. This is one that we knew this was probably going to happen, as we talked about on the show quite a few weeks ago or months ago.
Yeah.
But this is CIA finally says that the Saudi Crown Prince did order the execution of what's his name?
Jamal Khashoggi. Yeah. So as you said, this is the guy that was killed at the consulate in Turkey. I don't know, at least a month ago, probably. And it was strongly suspected that the Saudi prince had ordered him killed because basically, being the prince, everything goes through him. He's like a dictator, so to speak. Yeah. And now the CIA has come out and said they do have evidence that links the orders back to the crown prince. And this on the heels of Trump trying to maintain good relations or getting back in good relations with Saudi Arabia, and then something like this goes down. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the next step is here diplomatically between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia now that we supposedly have evidence that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia ordered this guy killed.
This is an incredibly sticky situation because Trump has gotten pretty close to him. And what do you think, Steve?
Well, all our presidents have been pretty close with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
It's a bad deal because it's sticky. You want to condemn it, and yet you don't want to completely ostracize these guys to where we don't have influence on them. So you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You just have to look and see what's best for everybody.
Yeah,
and that's why it gets so sticky, is because in a situation like this where they're ordering a hit, I mean, we know what Putin's been capable of, and he's over there damn near patting Trump on the butt here last week, but this is an outright, like, in our face situation, and so we're gonna have to handle this one with some very, very close. I don't even know a good word to describe it.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, if we back off with our trade and oil with them, they're just going to go somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
to
not
people we don't like, even more.
Yeah.
Well, and the more we do that, and if we end up ostracizing them, the technology they have, anything like that, I mean, you keep your friends close and your enemies close, right?
Exactly.
And that's the kind of situation we're in, is we want to keep tabs on them. So, number 2 here, Argentina, they lost a submarine about a year ago, and evidently they found it.
Yeah, they had, this was a sub that went missing off the coast of Argentina a year ago, and they had obviously given up the search some time ago, but they still every once in a while had some casual searches going on with search parties from the Argentine Navy and other entities. And they just the other day ran across, not the other day, I don't know how long ago it was, but it ran across an anomaly during one of their searches, the sonar searches of the ocean floor, ran across an anomaly. So they contacted a U.S. company that has all the unmanned robotic subs, and so they sent one down there to the bottom and found the sub, and they were able to ID the hull number and confirm that it was in fact this sub that they were looking for. And it is in 2,600 feet of water, so half a mile down. So
that's quite a ways down there,
Yeah.
but it's not something that I'm sure they can get. I mean, they've obviously gotten to it. It's a matter of, can they get it up?
Yeah, and it didn't even say whether or not they were going to even try. I don't even know if it's something they're going to bother with. So.
Diesel sub or was it nuclear?
Diesel electric, built in Germany. Yeah.
Okay. No,
You see any of the pictures of that thing before?
No.
It looked like the pictures I saw looked like it had a foot of barnacles on the
when it was
outside.
sitting on the surface like the older photos?
Yeah.
How old was it?
I don't know. I didn't catch an age, but I would imagine it's probably not exactly,
It's
cutting
diesel.
edge. Well, with being a diesel electric, obviously that's old technology, so.
Most of them now, I think most of them run on nuclear.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I would imagine, just so that it's so quiet. That's the whole idea, is that you have that. You ever play that old game, Silent Service, the old video game? You had to shut your engines off.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were diesel. Anyway, talk about going back to that. So. Well, number 3 here, it looks like Jim Acosta. His media credentials are back in hand after a judge reinstated them.
And there's a little bit of an update to this as of this morning, but the story was that a judge basically ordered an injunction, so to speak, ordering his press credentials restored pending the outcome of I think it's my water bottle blew up.
I was like, did
Sorry
the
about
lighting
that.
go out?
Pending the outcome of a lawsuit that he had filed against the administration. And so his credentials were restored, but evidently, from what I read this morning, it's just a temporary 14-day stay. And Trump came out today saying as soon as the 14 days are up, they're going to yank it again. So
Sure. But is this going to be something that continues just to play on itself?
yeah,
I mean, is it a merry-go-round
I
type
think they already
situation?
went back to court on what you just talked about.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
But it's going to be like a never-ending thing until something is settled in court. They're just going to keep playing these games back and forth, I'm sure. So.
No, the whole situation, like we talked about last week, is so obnoxious on the part of 2 of them acting like children in front of the national media and all of us to watch that. I mean, how can you devolve when you're the leader of the free world and a reporter who is an acclaimed reporter. Jim Acosta has been around for a long time. You'd think at some point they would have some decorum. Or not. I mean, you see this kind of stuff, I'm sure.
I've never seen anything like that.
I know, right?
I mean, I understand Trump is this and that, but Jim just kept coming back and would not. I mean,
this isn't his first time, though.
Yeah.
Going down this alley with Trump. I mean,
I was blown away.
Yeah. And then the poor gal that's trying to yard the microphone away from him, I mean, she's trying to be as nice and professional as possible. And he's, no, it's mine. I can just hear that voice in my head. No, it's mine. Don't take it away from me.
And so we need the courts to come in and say that there's no consequences for that behavior.
Exactly.
And they're saying it's a due process thing. Well, the Fifth Amendment's about criminal due process.
Exactly right.
What do they? Has nothing to do with it.
And you're not being deprived of your rights by being kicked out of the White House. You don't have a right to be in there. So I mean, it's the whole argument of being robbed of your due process rights is a complete non-starter for me personally, and I think it's a joke to begin with. So
it's. Yeah, at what point it would be interesting to sit in on the court proceedings for that, just to hear how they legitimize this whole thing. I mean, yeah, he was acting like a 12-year-old, and he was acting like a 12-year-old. Let's make this, we're in a big boy court with big boy attorneys making $1,000 an hour. I mean, it really is a joke, and so how do they legitimize something like that? Honestly, I don't think they can.
It's just costing us money.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we're the ones that end up paying for it. So, well, household debt, for some reason, in this amazing economy, continues to spiral out of control and has now hit a record high. Couldn't have anything to do with $80,000 cars, could it?
Yeah, no kidding. Was it Lincoln Navigators we talked about a long time ago?
Yeah.
So this is the household debt is now at $13.5 trillion as of last quarter. It is $837 billion higher than the previous all-time high, which was set back in 2008, right before the market collapsed. So we're kind of going on a bad path again here with that. The student loan debt, gotta combine the two words. Student loan debt is the biggest driver of this, and not only in terms of overall debt, but the delinquency of student loan debt is continuing to rise. Of all student loans, there are now 9.1% of them are delinquent past 90 days. Really? And that's also an all-time high. And then just to give you some scope in terms of the household debt. The household debt of $13.5 trillion, 9.1 of that is made up of mortgages.
That's actually really scary. That only 9.1% of it is secured by something real.
Right.
That is incredibly scary, because that means all of that debt, except for the student, can be discharged and goes away and will be a charge-off for a company someday.
Right. Yep.
That's crazy. Only 9.1% of it is...
Or 9.1 trillion. So
9.1 trillion.
Yeah, not percent. The 9.1% was the delinquent student loan debt.
Okay, so what was our big number?
13.5. So 9.1 out of 13.5. Okay. So there's 4.4 left unaccounted for after taking out the mortgages.
That's, so we're at 66% secured.
Right.
It's still a huge number unsecured.
Yeah.
Much better than 9.1. Yeah. You kind of scared me there, but we want to see as much debt secured as possible, so that if we do have to go after it, we've got something tangible there to back that up. But it's in this day and age with jobs being plentiful, and even though it doesn't seem that salaries and whatnot are going up accordingly, at least everyone's employed. I know that around here, the number of foreclosures and stuff that we typically have is down significantly because the market is doing so well, or the economy is doing so well. But I will tell you this, I had the grand opening of my office last week, and the overall talk was not if the market was going to turn, but when. And I've been kind of speaking and trumpeting on here that 2020 is the number that I was thinking. I couldn't believe the number of people that said spring of 2019.
That's not good for election cycle.
Not at all.
Yeah,
so,
right.
no, I mean, a lot of that is people, out there guessing. I mean, that's where it comes from. But when you've been in the business for a long time, you kind of see people are, things set themselves up, and we're back to where we were in 2006, 2007, where, you've got these prices. We've already seen a significant cooling in the market, especially above about 400 and in East County. Over here, you take a house in East Vancouver and you park it over here, what would take hours to sell in Vancouver will take weeks here. And I don't know what it is, but that was another topic of discussion, was how much slower things are moving out here, even in Camas.
Interesting.
So it's
transportation related somewhat to get from A to B.
Well, it used to be that this was the hotbed community. I don't know why I said blanket, but this was the hot community. People wanted to come out here. The schools are new. They're, Camas is Camas and all of that. But I just, even in the hot price range of $250 to $300, I mean, stuff is still not moving quite as fast as it did. If you get over that, into that 500 range, I mean, unless you're really priced well or you have a unique piece of property, things are taking longer. And we'll be getting into that kind of stuff here pretty soon. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how 2019 shapes up, and we'll have a pretty good idea probably in February how things are going. The rates are going to drive a lot of that. Yeah. So speaking of how things are going, GE, they're the dumpster divers right now, entering junk bond territory.
So as of Friday, the shares fell below $8, and the investment bonds for the company are close to being labeled junk status. Analysts say that if that happens, that GE is going to have a very short amount of time to right the ship before they would have to end up filing bankruptcy. So they're teetering on the edge of some bad news for them. And just to give you an idea of how far down they've fallen, their market capitalization in 2005 was $300 billion, and they're now down to $70 billion.
Yeah.
So,
and there's, because we talked about this story last month, a little bit, seeing all of the different things from them spinning off their subsidiaries. They're into everything. GE dang near controls our life. I mean, the amount of it's kind of, it's not overwhelming. It's pretty insane though. The number of products that company really does at least have a hand in developing or manufacturing. And so to see them, they're going to be back, and this is going to be an opportunity for somebody to make a lot of money, because at some point, talk about banks are too big to fail.
Too big to fail.
GE is way too big to fail. I mean, they're powering the jets that fly us around and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening to them. But I'm guessing that they're going to be like a Ford of the mid 2000s when, Ford was down at what, $3 a share or somewhere around there. And I wanted to hit the lottery so bad because I knew that there was no way it was going to stay there, and lo and behold, it didn't. They were the one of the big three that actually did it right, didn't take the bailout money, and buckled down. That's what you got to do, and GE's going to have to do that too, and they will, and then they'll, at some point be back at $40 a share. So anyway, it's I don't know. I think it's incredible that companies can have that big of a power over so many things. I mean, I know GE is into power, but I mean, from TV to jets to all that. Anyway, I always find them to be interesting. So, well, now we get to talk to the man of the hour, Steve Nelson. To my left, to Wes's right. We've got 8,000 questions. We'll pick our top 7,523, and I hope you're ready to be here through Thanksgiving.
David, bringing pie.
And so,
I know, right?
Those of you watching and listening that don't know who Steve is exactly, that we have had Larry Hoff on our show 3 different occasions, and Steve was on his campaign, and he was the media director for Larry Hoff. And so that's kind of why we brought him in today, is to talk to him kind of specifically about Larry's campaign, but just about a campaign in general and how things are run and how things, what it's like behind the scenes, so to speak. So, so I'll hit it with the first question: is how many people were on Larry's campaign and what were their roles?
I think with Larry's campaign, there was probably a core of about 5 people at all times. You had the campaign manager, and she kind of, all the details, the schedule and all that kind of stuff. I ran the media stuff, which included social media and all kinds of advertising. We had a consultant who did ad buys and, looked at the overall look of things going out. Then we had, of course, Team Wilson was involved, Linda Wilson, Tracy Wilson, great people to work with, great minds. And then we had another gal, Samantha, who was very wired in with the structure,
Okay.
Olympia and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good team, really good team. Very important part of a campaign is to have a group of people that work well together.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, because you do not need extra drama in that's for sure.
How is it that we have questions, and I'm going to
Sure.
piggyback on stuff as well as I usually do. How did you get into this? What was your driving force?
Well,
8 years ago.
8 years ago. So it was a little bit more than 8 years ago. My mom died of ALS, and before she went, she was very concerned about where the country was going. She said, "I'm okay, but I'm worried about your kids." That of course hit a nerve, and then the economy tanked, and I found myself on, what do they call that, work share, where I had an extra 2 days off a week because it just wasn't, the economy was terrible, there wasn't enough work, and I said, well, I'm going to do something with that extra time to try and make things better, So I went way back to the roots. I was like, what am I going to do? What worked? So I started reading the founding documents, and about the same time, this little thing was happening called a Tea Party organization. I kind of went parallel with it and on my own and studied all this stuff and found out what worked and what doesn't work. And long story short, ended up going to protest healthcare at Brian Baird's office one day, and a group of people showed up, and we're all out there with our signs, and it's like, okay, we went up and signed and registered and complained, and then we're like, now what? And this lady says, well, let's go on up to Maria Cantwell's office, and we all followed her, and that person was Linda Wilson, and it just kind of grew from there. We had our own little group, and we got together and studied stuff, and the Constitution had people come in, candidates and also scholars and things like that, and it's a good way to build a base on what works, and not just politics, but good government versus the whole political thing. We were in that, and then some folks came to us and said to Linda, you want to run for chair of the Republican Party? And she said, sure, but I want this guy to be my vice chair. So here we are again working together. A couple of years, real good time. I think we did some good work. And then just before her term was up, the spot opened up for state rep in 2014, and I said, Linda, you got to go for this thing. It's you. Finally, she did it, and I got to work on her campaign, and it's been going ever since. Yeah.
That's very nice.
Next question for you. Back to Larry's campaign. How many volunteers would you estimate that you guys had helping out with the campaign, and in what ways did they help out?
Again, campaigns, you can talk about volunteers and the core groups and stuff. Most of the work, the grind is done by the core group, the core team. But volunteers, we had people coming out for parades. I think we had 20, 30 people at any given
regulars,
time. Yeah, show up for parades, write letters to the editor, that kind of stuff. We had a good phone banking going the last couple of weeks of the campaign, where we'd have 12, 15 people all the time in there calling people, did you vote? Did you vote?
Those types of things, and this is just a follow-up, I have my question, but when you look at the phones in 2018, I think in 2005, they're probably more prevalent than they are now, but is it something that is still fairly viable with the advent of caller ID on everyone's phone and that kind of stuff? Do you guys make good connections that way?
No, it's gone down. And what it's going to now is texting.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Texting is going to be until they change the laws. But yeah, I mean, who looks at their phone at a number from, wherever and answers it anymore? I don't.
No, yeah.
So the rates of people answering has gone way, way down.
I'll bet.
So texting is the way to go. The only problem with that is you have to do it. It can't be a machine dialer or anything like that. So you have to get a bunch of people together and
really.
I mean, you can cut and paste the text, but someone's got to do it on the phone, right?
Wow.
Because that's the way the law is. You can't auto send out
spam,
text.
a bunch of spam stuff.
Yeah. But I see that as where things are going because who doesn't read a text?
Right.
Yeah, your engagement rates are I think over 90% on a text.
I mean, people don't even listen to their voicemail anymore.
Right.
Well, you have voice to text though,
right.
as well. I mean, you just flip it open and there it is. It's in text. So going, kind of along the lines of what you're talking about, having to actually text. What does a typical week look like, or what did it look like at the height of Larry's campaign? Let's say 2 weeks, or the week leading into the election, the actual day. I know we have things a little different here in Clark County, but what's that week like for you guys on a campaign?
We always start out with a weekend campaign meeting where we all get together and try and look at what's coming up and all that good stuff. Make sure we're getting out mailers, make sure that all the ad stuff is put together correctly, and then it's appearances. You got a breakfast over here, and then you've got to go doorbelling over here. It's all about voter interaction. The last 2 weeks, it's critical to just get out there, make contact with the voters, as many as possible, doorbelling, all that stuff, and then you get into the evening, and then he's got dinners and things like that you got to go to. It's a packed schedule. I don't know how these people do it. It's amazing.
They really are giving back. I mean, honestly.
Oh yeah.
The amount of time that goes into.
We badmouth politicians and candidates and things like that, but I don't run myself because I look at what they have to do. The amount of work and it's just nonstop. And plus, you got people beating the snot out of you just because you disagree about something. So it's a sacrifice. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
Next question kind of ties into what you already talked about with doing breakfasts and dinners. Is how do you coordinate and decide on which public events to attend? To have Larry attend
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at the cost-benefit ratio, really. Who's going to have a bigger group? Are they people that are likely to be voters in your district? There's no point in going to necessarily something that's out of district or doesn't fit what your goal is. So that's one thing you look at. And then what kind of voter interaction are you going to get? You get down to all these forums. There was a lot of people asking for forums now. It seems like I'm going to use the term special interest group, but different groups now want voter forums where the candidates come out and they ask a bunch of questions and stuff. And now it's gotten to the point where there's so many you just can't make them all. And then some folks get upset at you. Oh, you're not engaging the voters. And so you have to look at all that and see where's the biggest bang for your buck.
Okay.
Time. Who are you going to interact the most? What's going to give you the best numbers?
I think that what won Larry the election, and this is just my opinion based on nothing, but you talk about voter interaction. I think Larry's was so far and above what Kathy's was. I didn't see Kathy out, and I didn't hear from people because people see the show. They say, or I'll talk about Larry. Oh, I saw him there. I saw him over there. he was great here. I mean, this was not me soliciting their information. It was just they had mentioned they saw Larry, or somehow it came up that he was affiliated with us. Nothing ever about Kathy. And this isn't something based upon, the fact that I lean more right than left, but I honestly think that is what he got out there. People recognized him. They knew who he was. And I think that is what probably won him the race. What do you think about that? Is it something that really has a large impact on the overall success of a campaign?
Oh, definitely. If people feel like they know you and you're genuine, they're going to most likely vote for you. Kathy is a great candidate. I watched her a couple of years ago when she ran, and she's a formidable candidate. She just doesn't fit the district very well. And Larry did a great job getting out there all the time. I think sometimes just looking at some of the reactions after the election, some of Kathy's supporters, I think sometimes what campaigns will do is they'll cater to their own bubble, so to speak. And it feels good. It feels good. You're getting lots of good reaction and things like that, rather than branching out to places where you may not normally go. I don't know what happened there, but I'm happy with that outcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, it just goes to show that the human interaction, even in this day and age where these things dominate our lives, still has value. And I think that, like you said, regardless of whether Kathy is a good fit for the district or not, when you have somebody out there that you've made a connection with, I know even just family members at Camas Days shook his hand and he actually spoke to them. Like, hi, not a big conversation, but hi, how are you? Just a short thing like that where you can create that connection. And people really appreciate that. A lot of times, if they genuinely think that you're interested in them, I can imagine that even what the voter ideals are could go to the wayside a little bit, because they didn't feel like what the stereotypical politician feels like. And Larry was not that at all for us.
Yeah.
I mean, just having him on the show the few times that we did, and we always say that we want to humanize everyone on the show and kind of show this a different side than just what a political candidate would be, but he's that guy. I mean, regardless of whether the camera's on or the mics are on or not, he's the same person, and he's just a legitimately nice guy.
There's nothing phony about Larry, That's the thing with campaigns. I've been fortunate to work with who I feel are the cream of the crop as far as candidates. And good campaign, you got to start out with the right raw material. I mean, you just got to.
Oh, exactly.
And boy, I've been lucky to work with some really great people. Linda Wilson, Julie Olson, Jeannie Stewart, those folks, fantastic. Can't say enough.
Absolutely, and that makes your job easier as well when you have somebody that you believe in.
Yes.
You want to take the next one?
Yeah, not asking you to divulge the actual numbers or anything, but in terms of the campaign budget, how was the budget allocated? Like, you spent X percent on advertising, X percent on this or that. How did you kind of decide how to allocate the campaign budget?
Well, that's an ever-changing target.
Yeah.
Because there's absolutely no way to predict how people are going to contribute to a campaign, because you got everyday folks like you and me contributing. You've got the associations and all that deciding whether or not to endorse and contribute. That's a big part of the campaign is trying to woo these folks over and get that support. And you just it's building. You want to build. Our goal on this last one is to have some money for TV ads and of course the mailers and things like that. That was the biggest target, and you just don't know until you have the money.
Right. So
you have a couple different plans. Well, we'll allocate it this way if we don't get it enough to hit the TV mark and things of that nature. So you just don't know until it's in the bank.
One quick follow-up to that is you mentioned like the TV ads. Do you see now in more modern times, do you see more of that advertising going more online based as opposed to the old-fashioned television commercial?
I do. And that's where I've been fortunate to work on campaigns where they see that. You know, my thing is go where the people are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody's on social media nowadays.
Yeah.
TV, they zip past the ads.
Turn the channel.
Yeah. But the thing about, you know, like social media and things of that nature, just relatively speaking, the advertising is somewhat cheap.
Okay.
Actually, quite a bit cheaper than TV. Yeah. And I think it's more efficient because you can target it so well.
Yep.
I mean, you can do some pretty amazing stuff with targeting on social media. You guys probably do that with your, you know, someone typed in the word pizza, boom, there's my ad.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. And so, yeah, it's changing. I love it. I love that aspect. I love the targeting, and then I love checking the feedback coming back the other way to see how it's performing, that kind of stuff. Geek out on that quite a bit.
How much of a say does, you know, we're using Larry as an example, but does a candidate have in these decisions that we were talking about earlier, from the breakfast to the dinners to all of these things? I mean, I don't think there's a reason he's got a team of people that support him. There's got to be somebody that says, okay, that maybe researching the people that are going to be at this breakfast and or at that dinner and things like that. Is it something that you guys have a meeting without maybe Larry there, or you guys all sit down together and discuss these types of things and present the pros and cons to that base of voters over here or the one over there? Because I'm sure you can't hit everything.
Right. You know, that's typically stuff we would strategize on our weekly meetings and stuff like that. But in the end, and I wouldn't have this any other way, it's the candidates. It's the candidate's campaign. He or she has to own it. So they, you know, if there's something they don't want to do, they ain't going to do it. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I don't think I'd want to work for someone who so easily pushed one way or the other, gets away from whatever core they have. So that's just a test of leadership right there, is knowing when they have to say when.
So does Larry, just to follow this up with having a staff, so now does he have a staff that will follow him up to Olympia, or like a chief of staff or something like that?
So a state representative gets assigned one legislative assistant, and that's, I don't want to say secretary, but it's someone who helps with all the administration stuff, appointments, fielding calls from the district, you name it. Those people work their butts off, let me tell you. They're good people to know in Olympia because they know a lot.
They're the ones that actually, you know, have their pulse on how things are going.
Exactly. So, and that's kind of it. Then there's a pool of people that are assigned, like a public information officer who probably works, I don't know, from anywhere to 3 to 5 other representatives. And then I don't know if they get session aides. I think sometimes they do. Again, they're shared, that kind of stuff.
But the legislative aide, that's not like the candidate or the like Larry, so to speak. That's not somebody he would grab from down here that he knows. It's somebody that's entrenched up there.
He can do that, I believe. You know, you want to be comfortable and trust whoever it is you're working with. So, or you can get references for someone that's already up there.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to weigh that. Do I bring in someone I've known for a long time, or do I try to work with someone that's highly recommended? I don't know. I think LAs are they're make you or break you sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really? They have that big of an impact?
I think they can. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work, and if your appointments aren't getting set right and things like that, you know, you're showing up late to meetings. It just
not a good look.
No, not at all.
When Larry's up there, and we're going to hopefully be involved a little bit, you know, kind of following him as a new state rep. What's he looking at in terms of his time commitment when he's up there? What is the week in life? Is he going to be, will he drive up there each day? Do they stay up there? Just a little light maybe for everyone. I mean, we don't know what it's like because it's not a full-time position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that there are many hours that are unpaid and things like that, but in terms of like when they're in session, what does a day or a week look like for them?
Yeah, well, they'll get assigned committees, things like that, so they have their committee schedule, and then, the first few weeks are kind of, there's not too much going on. Well, there is stuff going on, but when things start really cranking is when they start getting into the budget and stuff like that. And I mean, they get called to floor at 10 in the morning and not leave till 1 in the morning.
Really?
I've seen some pretty long sessions. That stuff kind of comes towards the tail end. For some reasons, when the Democrats are running things, all that stuff gets pushed off to the very end. So it's a big time crunch to push it in there. And yeah, it's interesting. But he'll be up there during the week for sure. There's just no way to 2 hours back and forth. That doesn't work. So it's a full day. I hear it all the time from newbies up there that it's like drinking water from a fire hose. It's just nonstop. And
trying to take it all in.
Thousands of bills. And you kind of want to read as many as you can. That too,
Yeah.
And then they have different groups have receptions and stuff in the evenings. So there's a whole circuit you got to do up there.
Wow.
I'm sure. I can only imagine that it would be scary and it would be incredibly interesting all at the same time. And you kind of going back to the bills thing, now that we see what an election looks like, the first or the last thing that comes up is the negative ads. And Larry's not a part of that yet because he's new to it. But going to what you're talking about with the new bills, if he goes and votes on a bill that he didn't have a chance to really look at very well, that could come and bite him in the rear end down the road and be, he voted on this one. And so I can imagine that's something where you kind of want to have, if they had somebody to read that stuff for them or at least give them the cliff notes, is that kind of stuff provided for them? Because if they have thousands of bills and only 365 days in a year, it's kind of hard to imagine. I would imagine to get through all of it.
Yeah, and plus there also is a legal staff up there where you can call them up and say, well, what is this? What's the implications of this? And the trick is knowing you got to ask those questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's huge. He'll have. That's just something you got to get a feel for. And that's what your caucus is there too. You meet every morning in caucus and they talk about the bills coming up, what's good, what's bad about this, and that's where he has a chance to raise his hand and say, I don't like this in here. How can we vote for this or push back? But it's a learning curve for sure, big time.
I can imagine.
I got one last question for you on my list, and that comes to that's in regards to something that everybody sees every election cycle, and that's campaign signage. So what would you say the effectiveness is? Because you come to a busy intersection, and you see 35 signs at the intersection. That can't be effective. As somebody's driving by, they have 2 seconds to see 30 signs, so you're not going to get your message across that way. So do you find the static sign that's just driven into the ground at a street corner as effective or effective at all versus somebody like a group of people standing on an intersection corner waving signs and being more interactive with people?
Boy, it'd be nice to see a study on something like that.
Yeah.
We were talking about this. Well, it'd be great to see actual study that says, well, this works better than that, and this. So you kind of have to do all of it. But signage, Clark County is just crazy.
It is. It's absolutely insane how many signs are out there.
Well, in the one of these days I want to make a little documentary called Sign Wars, because you would not believe all the craziness and the accusations and stuff as far as people, you knocked down my sign, or so and so spray paint, just the absolute insanity people get so worked up about it. You know, they're not cheap. You know, there's a lot of effort goes into that. But as far as effectiveness of signs, I think they are, but you have to be strategic about it. You know, there's things like someone's got to see something 3 times. You know, when you're driving down the street and you see one sign in a crowd,
right?
You know, so you know, I was talking to Larry the other day, and we were driving out to, I can't remember where it was, but it's like, so do you drive around and not look for good sign locations still? You know, and it's always in your head. That'd be a good place to get a sign. You know, and then yeah, the trick is to try and stick out and get that name. That's why, you know, typically keep the signs very simple. The name.
Is one big thing, yeah.
The name, get that in the book. Because when you're voting, guess what? It's the name.
Yeah. And to follow up real quickly is, you mentioned an interesting point that I just thought of, is the repetition of seeing that same sign. So I'm assuming that's part of the strategy when you go down a busy thoroughfare like 164th and you see like Jamie's sign, like, you know, 6 signs every 100 yards. That's that repetition as you're driving by. So I'm assuming that's factored into it, is you want to see every 100 yards you're getting reminded of that same sign over and over, so it's going to get burned into your brain. Yeah,
and it's perception, you know. Wow. There's a lot of signs and it's have a lot of support.
Yeah, okay.
Is that something that, so when you guys are scouting stuff like that, do you have to, I imagine you have to get some kind of permission from somebody to put the signs up in specific areas? How does that kind of process work?
So there's a whole art to that. Every city, jurisdiction, whatever, has their own set of rules. If it's public right-of-way in Clark County, go for it. In Battleground and La Center, you got to get permits, I think. I don't even think you can get a permit in Battleground.
Really?
I think they're looking at that right now. Private property, get permission from, that's what I like, private property, because that says something. That means someone, you know, supports this candidate enough to put your name in their yard. You know, that to me means a lot. I don't know what most people see but to me that's the important stuff. Anybody can put a yard sign in, you know, off a sidewalk in a right of way.
Right.
What does that mean, you know? But when you've got a big sign in someone's yard along a thoroughfare, that to me says something. Yeah.
I can imagine that's. Yeah, we saw in the newspaper in the Columbian, there was a big article about a local gentleman that lent his land for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
down off of
in
SR 14.
Yeah, in a number of areas, and in my opinion, the Columbian tried to sensationalize it to some degree.
Oh, sure.
And make it about some kind of, you know, he was all for this one candidate, or did he give too much money? But it turned out that the guy gave money to dang near all of the candidates, regardless of more right-leaning and the far left. He didn't give as much to, but he was pretty generous with a lot of candidates locally, and so.
I actually met that guy, and he's a great guy, and he's just a businessman, you know.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything wrong. It's actually smart business being involved, and you know, why not?
Exactly, and that was my problem with the way the Columbian presented it was they tried to.
Oh yeah, they had all the strings attached.
Exactly,
to it. It was like some CIA board, you know.
That he was buying elections, and he was giving like $50 or $100. I'm like, if he's buying an election for $100, somebody's got a pretty cheap soul. I just can't, you know. But that's newspapers, and they turned what is a seemingly small issue into it was dang near a page and a half. So I can't imagine that it was that big of a deal, but, excuse me, my nose is just plugged up as all get out. When Wes and I have talked about this in the past, we have not term limits, but the terms for state legislators is 2 years. Is that adequate time for someone of, say, like Larry to get his feet on the ground, taking in that fire hose of information, and then making a difference before he has to start ramping up for another campaign, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I'm going to say not really. You know, there's so much people don't see and how much effort goes into that, and there's good and bad behind it. I like the idea that gives the people an opportunity, as Brandon Vick would say, to do a job performance rating on
Absolutely.
person. No, you're here or you're not. But at the same time, it's hard to get anything done in Olympia without any kind of tenure or anything like that, and that takes time.
You have to build relationships.
Yeah, exactly. And the other good thing about it too is it also tends to motivate them to get something done, for good or worse. But I'm a little concerned about that now, with everything being so much in the hands of they have a super majority now, I think. Hang on to your wallet. It's it's going to be interesting. It's going to be tough, but yeah.
Do you think that at the state level, like where state legislators, do you typically see the quote unquote career politician there, or are those folks they eyeballing the Senate or in terms of Congress more than the state level, or do you see the cronyism that we all kind of hear about?
Yeah, those terms are interesting. At the state level, no one's getting rich.
No,
I tell you what, that is not.
You're not doing it for the salary.
No.
And I don't know that you're doing it at the national level. Evil. I say.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers on that, but I can tell you at the state level. There's people that have been doing it for years. I think there's a few people that have been doing it for a few decades, and I would say they're probably just good at it, and the voters keep sending them back. I'm not one of these big term limit guys, because you know what? If people don't like someone, they can get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And all the money, and no, it still comes down to the voters. Make the decision, and there's your term limit. But in Olympia, career, there's people that is their job, they do it, but most of them have other jobs. Like J.T. Wilcox, the House Minority Leader, he's a full-time farmer.
Really?
Yeah. So
when you talk about that, and Wes and I were kind of talking about this last week, about how, and I found it interesting that Larry will be assigned to committees.
Correct.
Do they take into account what his background is when they assign him to that? Because I can't imagine that somebody that has his background in finance would be used on the Nuclear Power Commission or whatever it may be for Hanford. Do they look at that kind of stuff, or are they just are the freshman legislators just like, here, you get the last of the heap?
They look at that stuff. Of course, then they got to look at a lot of other stuff. They've got other members that they have to, and they have to weigh it. It's not an easy job, I'm sure. But yeah, I would think that Larry's background, he'd be kind of more towards the finance, business, that kind of stuff. I would think, but we'll see.
And how many committees are they assigned? Does everybody get the same amount of committees, or is stuff skewed?
Let's see. I think it's around 2 or 3. I think typically. Yeah.
I had a question come in on the screen here. Does a rep make a living wage in Olympia?
Does a rep make a living wage in Olympia? Probably not. I don't know how I could do it.
Really?
Yeah, I can take care of my family on that.
Because isn't somewhere around $30,000 a year or something?
It's 40 something, I think.
40 something?
Yeah.
Like you said, you're not getting rich.
So if you're single, maybe, but not if you have a family.
Boy,
right. Even if you're single, you're not socking it away.
Yeah, right.
It's it's not lucrative.
Yeah.
And you're under such scrutiny in how you spend the money that you're, whether it's a stipend or something, because they do get some per diem type stuff.
Oh yeah.
Don't they?
Yeah.
But I've seen it where they've been taken to task for their dry cleaning and things like that. But you get people
literally they have been. Yeah.
Yeah, and to some point, I would say, that you're going to have this stuff looked at. Don't take advantage of it, because it's only going to be used as fodder against you at some point in time. I mean, I can just see that in some dark, gloomy advertisement, and use $300 in dry cleaning, and this is what is going to hold you back from getting into office. It's just a common sense thing. I know that in Clark County, we've had several people, I think, rung up on that particular thing. So, well, as we get ready to wrap things up here, what does the future look like for you? Do you have other campaigns that you're going to be working on, or what role do you play in Larry's world now?
Not a lot, other than support, and maybe keep an eye on things down here a little bit, back in the district when he's up there. Any support I can give him. But as far as other campaigns, I was told to rest up. The next 2 years I'm going to be busy. What's that?
You guys start in, 18 months?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, less than that probably?
Yeah. There's always another campaign around the corner. It's kind of crazy. That's why I'm going to enjoy this weekend. I'm just...
chill, relax.
Yeah. But, I mean, after they're up there, and you have to be careful, too, because there's laws. You can't really be campaigning when you're in session and stuff like that. So it's like a switch goes off. No more of that, no more spending money towards, so. But yeah, there's always something on the horizon. There's always local politics too, party politics, things of that nature.
Very nice. Well, do you have anything else?
I'm done. I got nothing.
Well, I think that I would really like it to bring you on again and get even more in depth with this stuff, maybe after a few months of Larry being up there, and we, maybe have you and Larry on at the same time if that's possible at some point. But I would, because Wes and I would love to continue on and kind of document Larry's freshman year up there and what that's like to give the folks of the 18th district, Clark County, and our viewers and listeners an idea of a little bit of not so much behind the scenes, but what it's like for a person to transform, if you will, from an everyday citizen to somebody that is responsible for making laws. It's something I know I find incredibly interesting, and I think that our viewers would really like that sneak peek with somebody as easy to get along with as you and Larry. It makes it really easy for us and for them to see that there are good people out there fighting for us, and that Larry is just a normal guy. He's not.
Most of those folks up there, they're everybody up there's a regular person, really. I mean, they see things differently than us. But either side, I have a lot of respect for the folks that do this job, because it is a service. I mean, it is hard work. It's a service, and you're dodging bullets and arrows and everything else at the same time. So it'll be fun to watch Larry. I think he's a great guy, and he's just gonna do what he feels is best, and it'll be refreshing.
Absolutely. And having a voice up there that, not that, I don't know, the former voice that was up there is up for debate, but it's just going to be neat to see somebody that is as enthusiastic as Larry. I mean, he does have a lot of enthusiasm for this to serve, and it's not something that you see every day now. So.
No, you don't.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. We've had a blast. Do you have anything that you want to say?
No, I just hope this isn't your worst rated show. Everybody's not.
I highly doubt that. I think we're safe.
I think so too. You should see some of their past shows. No, I kid. Well, this has been Kinetic Chaos Podcast number 63. Hard to say 63, but it's been a long, fun ride. Everyone out there, we hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, Steve, and you, Wes. Thank you to David and Roy for hosting us this evening and letting us have our wonderful guests here. The lower guests, they have to come into the sub, but for the important
I wanted to go to the bunker. Come on.
Yeah, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It just depends on my dog and whether he's going to be bugging you or not. So, anyway, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you next week. We go.
See ya.
Facebook, thank you guys very much. We hope you enjoyed. Had good viewers. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Sorry, my nose is plugged up. I'll get over that.
See you guys later.
Bye.